Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. So what I'd like to do is show you how to evaluate for our 6 trigonometric functions. Given two angles here, I have pi halves and 3 pi. So to go ahead and do this, what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate using our unit circle. And basically what we want to do is evaluate for where the angle is going to intercept our unit circle. So the first thing we need to have is obviously a unit circle. So there's a nice, beautiful unit circle here. And there's going to be my center. Now remember, when we're graphing angles on the unit circle here, that's going to always be our start. And I'll kind of draw like an x and a y axis here. Now remember, if we start here and we go halfway around a circle in radians, that's going to be pi. So to graph our first angle here, we have pi divided by 2. So instead of going all the way around, which would be pi, we want to go to half of that, which would be pi over 2. Now remember, the important thing about a unit circle as well is remember that the unit circle has a radius of 1. That means this point is going to be 1, 0. So if I go up here to the y, and where the unit circle crosses the y-intercept, that's going to be 0, 1. Over here would be -1, 0. Now let's do it over here. -1, 0. And down here would be 0, -1. OK, so now what we need to do is just evaluate for sine, cosine, and tangent, cosecant, secant, and cotangent. Well, what's nice about evaluating when we have a point on the unit circle is the sine, just sine, cosine, and tangent, they all represent, the trigonometric functions represent the coordinate points of where your angle intercepts the unit circle. So you can see here I have 0, 1. Well, I have an x and I have a y coordinate. So when I want to do sine of pi over 2, sine just represents the y coordinate of where your angle crosses the where your y coordinate crosses the unit circle. So the y coordinate in this case is 1. When I do cosine of pi over 2, that represents the x coordinate, which in this case is going to be 0. When I do tangent of pi halves, that's going to be y over x. So if you take y over x, which is 1 over 0. But hopefully you understand that you cannot divide by 0. So this is actually undefined. Now let's go through our reciprocal functions. So when sine just represents the y coordinate, cosecant is going to represent the 1 over y. So if I have cosecant of pi over 2, that represents 1 over y, which would be 1 over 1, which is just 1. The secant is going to be 1 over x. Well, again, x here is 0. So 1 over 0, again, we understand cannot happen. So that is going to be undefined. And then the last one is cotangent. Now remember, where tangent was 1 over 0, y over x, cotangent is going to be x over y, which is going to be 0 over 1. 0 over 1, which is just going to equal 0. OK? And that's it. Now let's go over to 3 pi. And I thought I'd have a little fun with 3 pi, just because I never did any where we had angles that were greater than 2 pi. But again, if we're going to be graphing here, well, I'm going to go over to here is pi, over here would be 2 pi, and over here is going to be 3 pi. So now my coordinate point here is -1, 0. So now to evaluate for sine, cosine, and tangent, I'm going to have sine of 3 pi. Again, represents the y coordinate, which in this case is going to be 0. The cosine of 3 pi is going to be the x coordinate, which in this case is -1. My tangent of 3 pi is going to be, again, y over x, which in this case is 0 over -1. So 0 over -1, which is just going to be 0. My cosecant of 3 pi, again, is the reciprocal. So that's going to be 1 over y. So 1 over 0, well, we know we cannot have that. So that is undefined. You cannot divide by 0. Then we have our secant of 3 pi. Well, that's going to be 1 over x. So that's going to be 1 over -1, which is just equal to -1. And then lastly, we have cotangent of 3 pi. And cotangent of 3 pi is going to be x over y, which is -1 over 0. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot have 0 in our denominator. So -1 over 0, so that is going to be undefined. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is how you evaluate your 6 trigonometric functions when you have angles that are on the x and the y axis. Thanks.